Welcome to the Little Wins Podcast, where school leaders share their little wins that build strong culture, with your host, Karen Borchert. Hello, and welcome to Little Wins, the podcast where we celebrate the small, powerful things school and district leaders to do build. Whoa, we're going to try it all over again. Sorry about that. It's been that kind of morning. Hold on. Here we go. Hello, and welcome to Little Wins, the podcast where we celebrate the small, powerful things school and district leaders do to build joyful, resilient cultures for their teams. I'm your host, Karen Borchert, and today I get to talk with Maria Libby, Superintendent of 5-Town CSD and MSAD 28 in Camden, Maine. Maria's story is so rich. Not only has she been a teacher, principal, and now a longtime superintendent, but she's also an outdoor educator, an environmental advocate, a podcaster, and an author. Her leadership is deeply rooted in a vision for the common good. She believes that culture isn't optional. It's created with intention in every decision, every meeting, every new school year. Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Karen. I look forward to our time together.
Me too. Well, let's start with your district or districts, as it were. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from and about where you work?
Sure. I am fortunate to be planted in Mid-Coast, Maine, which is a really beautiful part of the country. I am superintendent of two fairly small districts that combined have a population of about 1,450 students. We're in a fairly affluent area. We have about 18 to 20% low and free and reduced lunch rate. So, not as low. Some spots in southern Maine around the Portland area might have 5% free and reduced lunch. So we're not quite that low, but many places in rural America have, 60 to 90% free and reduced lunch. So, by comparison, we're a fairly well-off district. We have a very actively engaged student body, parent body, community, and we're doing a lot of great things in our school district.
Very cool. Very great. Well, tell me a little bit. I believe tomorrow is opening day for your staff, if that's correct. Tell me what that looks like in your district.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit extra special this year,
okay,
because we've been planning for a little over a year now to have a national speaker come who we are hosting. But we've invited a number of other school districts in our region. So we have about 6 or 7 other school districts in addition to our own, whose teachers and administrators are coming to listen to a national speaker named Wes Kishnek, if I pronounced his last name right. And so that's kind of a big deal. We don't usually have national speakers come. So that's big. He presented at a superintendent meeting a year and a half ago and was superb. And a group of our Mid-Coast superintendents thought we should have him come and speak to a large group of our teachers to inspire them. So that's happening. And then we'll have kind of a traditional opening day, which is usually marked by some remarks that I make to set the stage and lay the foundation for the year. And we'll have some fun and games.
Okay.
And last year, our day was followed by a gigantic World Cafe that our teachers participated in, and some optional PD days. This year, however, we have about an hour and 45 minutes left at the end of the day that we're just going to give back to teachers for time to do whatever they feel like they need to get done.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That'll be a fun surprise for them, I'm sure. Yep. Tell me a little bit about how you decided that. So, a national speaker, events all day long, and then even, just kind of giving that time back. What kind of culture are you trying to evoke, or what kind of tone are you trying to set for the year with the way that you've designed that day?
I always try to have my remarks include some reflection, looking back, celebrating the things that we've done, honoring the people who are in the room. And I actually require 100% of our employees to attend our opening day in at least my remarks, because I try to make sure to have every staff member feel like a valued part of the team during that time. And it's the only time all year that I have with all of our employees. So it's a critical time for me to set that stage. This year, we have every year that I've been superintendent, I've chosen a sticker this is this year's sticker.
Okay.
And today I choose joy. So our kind of a theme that we're going to go with this year is joy. So as part of my remarks, I mean, I've got this t-shirt cannon that's going to shoot out some t-shirts. I've beach balls that will be, bouncing around the auditorium, and I've got a number of prizes that people will win. In addition, I'm honoring the 8 people who have worked in our school district the longest. So, we try to have fun, and certainly bringing joy and being joyful is what we try to inculcate every year and have that spread for our students. And we do have a pretty joyful culture. The work of school is hard. Education is a hard field to be in. There are a lot of demands. And so you have to be intentional about the culture and the joy. It would be very easy to just let the challenges that come up every day swallow you up. And you have to be thoughtful about those things. So, I try to find the moments in my days, or sometimes it's my weekends, where I have this idea of something that could be really fun that we could do. In fact, this year I wanted to do a huge cookout, like a barbecue that was maybe like a pig roast or something, and for all of our employees. And that's what I was going to do for a couple hours. We were going to have these different games that were happening outside, but I actually couldn't find a caterer who could cater that many people. So I abandoned that idea. And instead, people are going to have that free time, which they will very much appreciate.
Oh my gosh, they will love it. Yep. That will be wonderful. So let's go back to that sticker. That is, the name of this podcast is Little Wins, and we love looking for things that are small things that leaders can do to really build out the culture in their buildings and in their districts. Where'd you get the idea for an annual sticker? And, what does that look like for you? Why do you do it? Why a sticker?
Honestly, the where I got the idea was I was at a conference in Denver one year, and as part of the conference, attendees got to attend a Denver Nuggets game. And slung on the back of every single chair in the stadium was a T-shirt.
Okay.
And the T-shirt said, "Can you feel it?"
Okay.
And sort of that was evoking, like, can you just feel the energy in this stadium for the Denver Nuggets? Yeah. I loved that concept. And that was the year before I became superintendent. I loved that the Denver Nuggets had done that. And I just had the idea. And truly, my first sticker said, "Can you feel it?"
Oh, that's
and my
awesome.
whole remarks, my very first year as superintendent, was about wanting to just feel the positive energy in our school system.
Very cool.
And then I thought, like, if I'm going to do this once, I should actually do this every single year of my superintendency. Okay. And that would just kind of be fun. So I have done that most years. It's been a single word that I've chosen, even though the first year was a number of words. And this year is a number of words.
Yep.
But, other years, like the year right after the pandemic, happened in basically March, that next year's sticker was nimble, which was very appropriate.
Yeah, that's great.
I have had practice gratitude, be kind, balance, innovate. So I've had a number of different things. I've had this list that I think about every year, and there are certain words that I want to use. But every year there's a reason I choose the word that I've chosen. And so I still have some that its time just has not come quite yet.
It's not up. Its turn isn't up yet. So tell us a little bit about why you chose I Choose Joy this year.
The reason why I chose that this year is because we have a lot of really great things about our school district. We have superb teachers. We're a pretty well-oiled machine. And I do feel like the demands within education for both administrators and teachers and other people who work in the system can be so great and can feel so heavy that it's really easy to let those things dominate the way you feel. But you can really try to counteract that by trying to find the moments of joy. It's kind of like your podcast says, the little wins. And I just think it's really important for that. So I just thought, because of how heavy life has been since the pandemic, how heavy life is right now for a lot of people with so many things changing in the world, that, we still can find the joy. There's still a lot of joy and beauty to be seen and had. And I just felt that that was a good theme to carry us through the year at this time.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, one of the things I admire about your path is just that it is not a linear path. So you've stepped into education and out, raised your kids, worked in environmental work, and have come back to teaching and leadership. I would love for you to take us back and tell us a little bit about how you got into education. What drew you to the field?
Well, it's actually pretty interesting. I laugh at myself because there are a number of things in my life that I, at one point, said, I will never do that particular thing. For instance, I was a swimmer in high school.
Okay.
And I said I would never go to Bowdoin College and swim because their pool was just terrible. And I ended up going to Bowdoin College and being on the swim team. And
Perfect.
then when I was in college, I said, I'm never going to teach because I'm just working so hard around the clock. Like, it never ends. Homework is always there. When you're in school, there's always something to be done. And I thought I don't always want something hang over my head. So I'm not going to teach. But honestly, education has been like a magnetic force in my life. It's like this gravitational pull for me. So I did a lot of things that might lead anyone else looking in to think, of course, she's going to be a teacher. Look at what she's done. In high school, I tutored students. In college, I tutored students. In college, during my college years, I worked at the Hurricane Island Outward Bound School leading courses. So in my first, ironically, it's actually my second job out of college. My first job out of college, I kind of took a year off, so to speak, and did some traveling and helped my parents build a house.
Wow.
And then the following year, I thought what do I want to do? I didn't think I ever wanted to go into corporate America. And I thought, I know I would be a great teacher because I have had great relationships with all these students in my past. So my first real job was a teaching job at some private boarding schools. I started in Colorado and then came back to New Hampshire and worked 4 years in boarding school. And then I left education, life circumstances mostly. I was married at the time. My husband went back to school, started a PhD program, and I kind of followed him, left the school we were at and followed him, had worked at an environmental nonprofit, drove a boat for them because driving a boat was also a big part of my life.
Okay.
Prior to that. And I really cared about the environment. And I didn't know if my career was going to be in the environmental world, the education world. I just didn't know. And then I had 2 kids, really wanting to be home and raise kids, especially in those early years where it's so important. So I took 3.5 years off from the workforce. Although at the time I actually did teach like a women on the water boating course at Maine Maritime Academy, where my ex-husband had been teaching. So I still dabbled in the boating world during that time. And then life circumstances again forced my hand into needing to return to the workforce. And I had 2 kids at the time. And I just thought, if I think about my life and what's important to me, making a difference with my time on this planet was important to me. And I used to think really hard about what's the single most important thing I could do to have my life be meaningful and make a difference. I always came back to education. And I wanted to be able to balance parenting and working and earning money. And I felt teaching was a good balance because I'd have my summers with my children. So that's when I returned to teaching. And it's, been the past 28, 29 years that's what I've been doing and just kind of moved up the system.
Wow.
And landed as superintendent, again, a job I said I'd never do. So I learned very late in life, Maria, just don't ever say,
I'll never do that,
because inevitably it could happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's you bring so many rich experiences to your work as a superintendent now. How do you think those experiences in outdoor education, in boating instruction, and in these different things, how do you think that those shaped how you lead today? What's different about the way you lead because of the experiences you had early on?
Yeah, another kind of common theme in my life had been being a pioneer in the work world. Like I'd been the first person to do a lot of things. I started a lot of jobs. Like at one of my schools, I started an environmental program When I worked at an environmental nonprofit, I started a Baykeeper program. So I had done a lot of pioneering. I think that
Beekeeper program, man, you have a million experiences.
I mean, I think
love it.
That has played into always thinking outside of the box. And, I would say I'm not a person who just follows a cookie cutter way of doing something, a traditional way. I question things. I look for better ways to do things. I'm very conscious about trying to be the best leader I can be and continually growing as a leader. I also think that my time at Outward Bound was the most influential thing in my life.
Really?
That impacted who I have been as an educator and a leader. And I think a lot of that was because, consequences are so directly tied to behaviors in an Outward Bound course. And, where I instructed, it was always based on sailing. And, if students weren't willing to put in the effort to row if the wind wasn't blowing, we wouldn't get to where we were going until we got there. And it might be 11 o'clock at night. And if they missed dinner, because, they either, especially when it was time for them to lead, if they weren't doing things properly, like they paid direct consequences for their actions. And I felt like they learned a lot from that experience. And I had been a student on an Outward Bound course, and it was a huge growth opportunity for me as well. So I have brought so much of that experiential education into my life as an educator, and honestly, into my life as a superintendent. I am constantly pushing envelopes of, talking to kindergarten teachers who might be more concerned about, standardized testing or assessment. And I say to them, it's not me who's asking you to do these things. So where are the stumbling blocks? If anything, I'm asking you to be a little bit more play-based and unstructured because I think that that's what students need. Or even at the high school level, last year, I challenged our principal. We were having a hard time getting substitute teachers.
Yeah.
I said, do all of our juniors and seniors truly need to have a substitute when a teacher is absent? We have really responsible students in our school. Could we try having students go to the class and working on their own, especially if we have highly motivated students like AP students?
Right.
Those classes have an adult who comes and reads a book while the students do their work. So I am constantly challenging us to think outside of the box, think a little bit differently. Do we have to do things just because they've been done for the past 50 years in a certain way? So I do challenge a lot. I often think, I'm not your typical superintendent. I'm pushing in places that a lot of times I think superintendents are trying to rein other people in.
That's so great. I love that. And I love the simple concept of just questioning things, just, saying, not like, does it always have to be this way? Or like, what if we had to find a way for our students to have a really successful day, even if we can't find a substitute? That's a risky thing to do, right? That's a hard thing to do. But I love that tied back to that time at Outward Bound. Outward Bound is no joke. So
yeah,
for sure. Well, this is really, you can kind of already start to hear just from kind of your style of leadership, what culture must be like in your district and in your schools. But tell us a little bit about how you build strong school culture across kind of these multiple districts and communities. How do you think about that?
Well, it's something that you said at the very beginning of this podcast, that it's intentional. So I do think that there's a lot of intentionality behind what I do. I also try to be well aligned as a school district. So I recognize that if there's something that I want to accomplish or culture that I want to engender, I need to make sure that I do the work with my administrative team. They can then fan things out through their staffs in a consistent way, and that they're on board with things. We talk about how do we get teachers on board with initiatives that we are trying to undertake. But just in terms of culture, for me, it has to do with the amount of money people are making, to how we introduce them to our school as new staff members. We have structures such as, all three of our schools have regular assemblies where the whole school comes together. And that is something that I brought here from my time at a boarding school. Proctor Academy is a school I had taught at for 3 years in my early days. And they had a regular assembly that was so powerful to build the culture of the school. When I became principal at our middle school, because I've been in this single district for 28 years. And so when I became principal at the middle school, I brought a monthly assembly to the middle school. And it was some of the most joyful, amazing time I've had in our school district is during those assemblies. And they carried on after my tenure. The high school started doing assemblies as well. So, we have structures that help spread that culture. We have small things. We're thoughtful. I mean, I send a card every staff member who has a birth or a person in their immediate family passes away. I send a personal note to them. I'm in a small enough district. I mean, we have 300 employees, regular employees. And, so I can do that. I can manage that in those small moments, just zipping out the card quickly. So it's 100 different decisions that I'm making and trying to be conscious of, what are we doing at Staff Appreciation Week? What are we doing around the holidays? What are we doing at our opening workshop day to celebrate the people, make them feel valued, important, that their work is important, that we care about them? So there are a lot of things that I do. And, some of it isn't all celebratory because I think to grow trust, I also think is partly just being consistent in my decision making, treating people fairly. I think some of it is kind of mundane, just trying to run an efficient operation as an institution. But I think that all of those things matter and can help people feel confident in leadership, trust leadership, that your leadership has your back, they care about you, they're taking care of you.
That's wonderful. Can we go back to this assembly thing for a moment? Yeah. Because I don't think that most people, when they think about middle school assemblies, think the words joyful and powerful. I'm not sure that that's what everybody, first comes to mind. Right. So tell us a little bit about, what from your experience, did you see that made assemblies, those kind of that assembly format, something that was really transformative for school culture? And what does it look like when it's done really well, when it's powerful and joyful?
Yeah, well, a lot of the times we probably did try to have some theme that we were trying to help students understand, whatever that might be. For instance, the first assembly of the year at the middle school, we have a 5 through 8 middle school, and the 6th through 8th graders go to the gym first. And then the 5th graders come in and the rest of the school stands up and applauds the incoming 5th grade class as they come into the assembly to welcome the 5th grade to the school. So that's a really traditional, beautiful thing that happens to make the 5th graders feel really welcome and special in the school. But, we wouldn't have, my assistant principal at the time was a really good singer, and he was part of a band that was called Just Teachers, because everybody was just teachers who was in the band, except he had been a teacher when it started. They would, for instance, perform a song that students were, it was the song of the year. Probably, right now it would be some Taylor Swift song or something.
Yeah.
They would perform and the students would be singing along.
Oh my gosh.
It would be joyful. There would be some games, like some quick competition between students and staff members, like who knows, the student council, or each grade would send down 5 representatives and they'd compete in some silly game against teachers. Teachers might perform for the student body. We might do some kind of, presentation that happened in the middle of the assembly, but we'd always have some fun pieces of the assembly to help build the culture. I will never forget, quite honestly, one day at an assembly sitting there as principal. And, at this point, this was 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Sitting at an assembly and feeling in that moment like, this is going to be one of the best moments of my educational career. This feeling that is completely imbued in my body of how joyful this moment is, and that I'm here witnessing it, not only witnessing it, I'm the principal of this building.
Yeah.
And I feel such a part of the unity and joy and love that's happening. And that moment has never left me. The
Wow.
palpable feeling of just being a part of something that just felt so good.
Yeah. Oh man, I like have goosebumps. What do you think that kind of experience does for the team of educators and staff members and office staff? But everyone in the building has to feel that. Obviously, the kids do, and that's what it's about. But how do you think it changes how people feel going to work?
I mean, I think, I have always said, and honestly, in my opening remarks tomorrow, I relay a story that I had with a teacher at the very beginning of my career, saying to her that I believe that we can create the best years of our lives with what we can do here. And that is what I've wanted to do the entire time I've been superintendent, is to try to help the people who work here in particular feel like they are coming to a place that they're eager to come to every day. And it's the best years of their lives because they feel so valued. The work they do is so valuable and they feel valued. So it is something that has driven me. I certainly can't say I've been perfect in executing it over the past, I'm in my 11th year this year. Oftentimes my job consumes me and it's hard to get out of my office at times.
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking about those things because I think it's so important, especially in education, where people are sacrificing a lot of other opportunities and potentials for money and other things to be in education, that you need them to really love being and coming every day and feeling like their work is meaningful. It's what keeps us going.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love the idea of, we can create the best years of our lives that's a powerful statement. And it's one that maybe you don't hear as often as, in education or for the profession of education. And it's so right and true. I like want to fly to Maine and watch your speech tomorrow. So that's really great. You just mentioned a little bit about, kind of as a district leader, sometimes it's harder to be as connected. How do you stay connected to what's happening day to day in those classrooms and those assemblies? How do you kind of keep that close connection in?
I try to go to events when I can, but even that is hard. So I'll go to an assembly when I can, just even for part of the assembly, just to be a part of and witness what's happening.
Yeah.
I try to get in classrooms. Those my best days of the year always are when I am in schools, talking to teachers, visiting with students, being in class, seeing what's happening. I've had a principal say to me, Maria, it is amazing to me how different you look when you have just walked through my school. You look so different because you are so happy that you just got to do this. I love doing that, but it is admittedly incredibly difficult because, I often say there really could be 3 of me to do my job as superintendent.
Yep.
And it's hard to carve out that time. I try to schedule it in my calendar to be in schools. I'm going to try to be in schools, like each school 1 day a month, and just spend the whole day.
Okay.
In each school. So 3 days a month, I'm trying to be in schools. So, I just try to schedule those things when I can do there, when I can get there. The other thing that I have done, it's been a win-win. That is just last year is the first time I did it, and I'm doing it again this year, is that I held a student leadership forum for 55 of our high school students.
Oh, cool.
And we did it at our local yacht club. Since we're on the ocean, we have a beautiful yacht club that's not in use much in the fall. And so we rented that space for the day. And I did this day-long program about leadership with 55 high school students. And again, I had the best day because one of my greatest strengths as a teacher was my relationship and my ability to form relationships with students. And I have missed that as superintendent. And so like a day like that for me fills my bucket and cup for months to come.
Yeah.
And students students, we actually ended up talking about cell phones during last year's session because this year we're going phone free as a school. And when we were talking about cell phones, one of the students raised his hand toward the end of the day. And he said, for instance, I've been completely engaged all day today. We've been here all day. Not once have I wanted to look at my phone because what we've been doing is so engaging. So if we're this engaged in school, maybe the phones wouldn't be as much of an issue as they are. But to me, that was a great sign. He was using it as an example about school. Yeah. Your school. But I thought like, okay, that's a win. That he has not been, motivated to look at his phone at all today because he's been so engaged. So it was really engaging for students and for me. I loved it. And then students, we followed up all year long, and students created 2 new courses. And they planned out these trips. We had some grant money that we had some extra money, and each grade got to go on like a trip to Boston. And students planned the whole thing. So we tried to have some leadership opportunities come out of the day.
Oh, that's great. That is great. What a fantastic way to kind of deep dive, stay engaged, but not just by, popping by people's classrooms, but hosting a whole day like that. But that's a terrific, terrific example.
Sometimes I've been known to make chocolate chip cookies and meet with students during lunch, and just to do a student forum session, a focus group to get feedback from students. And, I'm doing coffees and some evening things for parents this year, trying to just be accessible and available.
That's great. That's great. I want to go back really quickly to, when we were talking about culture and how you set culture, you talk about setting it with intention. And you and I had a conversation before about a potential kind of staff breakfast that was that there was some discussion about, and about how important things like that are. Will you tell us that story a little bit about the potential for surveying people about that?
Yes. So we had this tradition just in the central office, which is, 10 to 12 people.
Yep.
And we would do bagels every Friday morning at 9 just to build culture, have people have an hour where they could just talk, get to know each other, laugh with each other, because we are understaffed and lean. I mean, by any private organization standard, we are very lean.
Yes.
And we're understaffed in that way, and that we're just simply lean. So everybody is working hard every minute they're at work. Yep. So we don't get a lot of time to just get to know each other and chit chat.
Right.
So we carved out this time once a week to do that, which has been really important for culture. For me, especially for me, I always feel badly as superintendent in the central office, like the physical space where I work. I have very little time to chit chat with anybody because I am so busy when I'm here.
Yeah.
I feel badly about that because it's not who I want to be as a leader.
Sure.
So this hour was really important. I would always make myself available to be there. People could see me in a different light, understand that I'm just a normal human being with, fun things going on the weekends or whatever.
Yep.
And this year we've had some changes in our staffing. And our new business manager, we have a whiteboard in our kitchen area. And oftentimes we put up silly things like, what's your favorite song? And everybody will just list their favorite song or just random things.
I love that.
Yep. And it's a way to help us get to know each other. And nobody ever knows who's answering, but we ask all kinds of fun questions. Anyway, he had put up on the board, which I saw one evening, and he must have recently put it up because nobody had responded or anything. And it was something about, do you still want to do the bagel breakfast? And I saw that and I immediately erased it. And I went and said to my business manager, did you put that question on the board? Because if you did, I need to let you know that I just erased it. And I want to tell you why.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, I did. And I said, oh, I got to tell you, it's not an option. Like culture's not optional. Like I'm not going to ask people because everybody will say, and I probably would too. Yeah, I'm too busy. I can't afford that hour. We know people would say that, but people value it so much and they do it and they have liked it because I know they've talked to each other about how much they like it. And I was like, I don't want anyone else to be able to say, no, Maria, as superintendent, you can't create a positive culture in our central office because we're going to prevent you from doing that because somebody asks this question and would all rather get our work done. And I'm like, no, I want that as part of our culture to be able to have that opportunity to get to know people as humans. And it was an hour and people came and went during the hour as they saw fit. Anyway, so I mean, I don't think it's optional.
Yeah. I think that's such a key insight that, culture is going to happen one way or another, whether or not you set it with intention and, put structure around it and put things, experiences around it, or whether you don't. There will be a culture in every organization, in every building. So to say, our culture is not optional, you are, this is what we're doing, and we're going to be intentional about those experiences. First of all, it sets a tone and it says volumes to your team to say, I know we're all busy. We're going to take the time to have breakfast together every once in a while, pop in, pop out. If we know you've got a lot going on, but to set that time and protect that time, and make getting to know each other and knowing each other on a personal level and building those relationships part of the job that you're asking of them is I believe just a huge message to send. And I imagine it kind of trickles to everywhere else in the district as well. Do you feel like it does?
Well, it does, because honestly, I mean, I'm very conscious about this. The way that the central office gets along and how we operate absolutely ripples out into the rest of the district. I mean, I had a meeting yesterday with my business manager, my assistant superintendent, and me. And it was like, okay, we three are really important in this district's culture. And we had an entire hour and a half meeting about district culture.
Wow.
And what we want to try to, achieve and do as in the roles that we're in, because we have a big impact. I mean, we're not the only impact for sure.
Yeah.
We can only control so much. But people watch how we interact. People watch all kinds of things, how people joke with each other.
Yeah.
And the more we can know each other well, be comfortable with each other, have good, fun relationships, that makes a difference for the entire district.
I love that. I love the idea of a culture planning meeting at the district level. Tell me, do you have a takeaway or anything like little or big that came out of that meeting of something you're really hoping to do this year with regards to that culture?
One of the things that we talked about has to do with some of the philosophy of what we're trying to focus on this year, and that is learning as an ecosystem. So part of it was talking about when we want to do something like that, how we need to kind of fan that out. And, we talked about like our jobs and the assistant superintendent going to some of the staff meetings and making sure that administrators at our administrative team meeting, they know what we're talking about, have a good visual for what we're talking about, and then having her maybe go help at some of the staff meetings so it trickles down to all the rest of the staff. I mean, so that was just more of a culture piece in terms of literally philosophy and what we want to do for learning. But we talked about the importance of all these different pieces happening to make sure that it ripples out in a way that we intend it to, and that it's not just rhetoric. I mean, big thing in our school district is that things are not just rhetoric. If we're going to commit to something, we're going to do it well and do it thoroughly. For instance, like our strategic plan is a document that lives and breathes. And I mean, every board meeting, every administrator reports out on their progress on the strategic plan every single month.
Wow.
So we're really well aligned and intentional about what we're doing. But, we don't want to be too rigid. We want to have fun. Yeah. Sometimes I say to people, I literally said to the new staff, do not let our informality and desire to have fun and be joyful belie how professional and what high standards we have in our school district. Yep. Those things go hand in hand in our school district.
Yeah, and vice versa, right?
Yep, we have very high standards, but we also, are fairly informal, casual, like to enjoy each other's company. But it does not mean we're casual about the work we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Gosh, there's so much good here. Tell me a little bit about, it sounds like, you do a lot of things that are, kind of district level planning and, assemblies and some of these things that are just excellent, just kind of culture touch points throughout. Are there any little things that you do, that, we, like I said, little wins, a kind of small everyday practice in your district that you think strengthens school culture?
I mean, The smallest thing is that, I can take this back to when I was principal, and I think this is echoed everywhere that it can be, is literally greeting every single student that I walked by. I made a point in my first month of school every year to learn every fifth grader's name. And I already knew the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. So all I had to do each year was learn the fifth grade names.
Yeah.
So within the first month of school, I knew and at the time we had like 380 students in our school. I knew every student's name because it was really important to me to greet every student by name. Now I try to do that with staff. Okay. Every time I'm walking past a staff member, I try to greet them like, hi, Dan, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
Hi, Sarah. I want to know their name so that they know that they're seen and that I, as the leader of the district, know who they are. So to me, that's like a really small thing, but I think it's really powerful. And I know that happens within our schools. Principals do a fantastic job just simply acknowledging and greeting the people walking past you.
Yeah, that's such a good one. Okay, as a person who is notoriously bad with names, let me ask you this: how do you practically, tactically do that? As far as both your students and your staff? Do you have flashcards? Do you have?
I don't have.
How do you do
flashcards. So what I have done, what makes it easier, well, for students, what I used to do with fifth graders, I would go to their classes. So the first few weeks of school, I'd go to a fifth grade class. I'm like, okay, I'm here. I tell them who I am. I'm here to learn your names. And I would go around the room and I would spend probably 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I just happen to be pretty good with names. So it's easier for me than it is with most people.
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave the room until I got everybody's name down. Wow. And then I probably would only do one room a day. And then I'd go to lunch.
Yep.
And I would see the kids again. And I would go around the lunchroom. Okay, that's David. That's Weston.
Yep.
I can't remember that kid's name. And I would go up to them and I'd say, gosh, I know I met you yesterday. Yep. I can't remember your name. Can you remind me? So I would reinforce it. And then it would be, yes, I'd practice and it would be solidified. With staff, I interview all of the teaching staff that we hire. So I've met them in interviews and, then I'll see them tomorrow on our opening day. Again, we used to actually have them all wear leis.
Okay.
Like in leis, so we could identify who the new people were so other people could greet them.
Yeah.
Because we go across the three schools and staff at all three schools don't necessarily know each other, but we wanted people to welcome our new staff members and they wouldn't necessarily know who they were. So they all wore leis. And I would just same thing. I would just practice because it is really important to me. And fortunately, I am pretty good with names.
That's good.
I have a harder time, honestly, recently, because we have much higher turnover with our support staff, like our custodians, our education technicians. It's harder to keep up with them because so many of them, they're here for 2 months. They got another job someplace.
Right.
There's so much turnover that it's been much harder to keep up. But like I used to have an event this year. I didn't do it because I heard they didn't appreciate it as much as I hoped they would. But I had an event for all of our custodial staff at the end of every summer out at this local camp that's on a lake. And would do lunch for them. And I would make sure I knew every one of their names at that event. So like when I take the opportunities that I have to really try to cement names.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Okay. We are learning so much from you today, Maria. First of all, really quick, we haven't heard very much about your podcast, but it's a pretty cool model that you use to build community and culture within your district. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I started this podcast a couple years ago. It's called Super Story Inside Education because I wanted to try to help change the narrative of public education and what's happening inside schools. I wanted the people inside schools to be telling the stories rather than the media to be telling stories that isn't what a lot of people experience within public schools. Yeah. So the first year, I decided I was going to interview all kinds of interesting people who worked in our school system. And I was going to do a variety of job functions from bus drivers to custodians to teachers. And I included a few students. And I just had people tell their stories. There were fascinating stories from young adults who grew up in our town, went through our school system, and one whom was in a PhD program in classic languages. Wow. And decided to come back and teach and forgo his PhD program because he was so excited to come back and teach Latin.
Wow.
And he is in seventh heaven in his job. And so I'm going to have him come back and be on my podcast because his story is so great. It was a really conscious choice for him to come back and teach something that, not a lot of people are majoring in these days.
Yeah.
Just other stories of administrators who had once been teachers in our school district, talking to them about the transition from being a teacher to an administrator, kind of going over to the dark side, so to speak.
Yes.
So I knew so many people in our district because I've been here a long time, and I knew the stories that were interesting that I think would be good public interest stories and who are the people filling our schools and working with our children. So I loved that season. Last year, I focused more on people outside of our district, trying to hear other voices. I had a podcast with superintendents from around the country talking about teacher housing. As one of them, I talked to a couple of people who had been in education and left the education field altogether. And I talked about their decision to leave education and why they had done it. So it was a variety of different things. This is my third season. And I have decided that this year I'm going to try to elevate student voice, and I'm going to focus the whole year on high school students.
Wow.
And what they think about the future, what they want out of life, what they think is important in education, and just try to elevate student voice. I think this generation of students is facing a future like nobody prior to them has in terms of an incredibly uncertain future and what that means for them. And I just think it's important. They're the generation that's going to inherit the world. They'll be taking care of us when we're old. And it's important to know what is important to them.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
I love doing the podcast, as you may as well. I love those conversations with people that can be so rich. And that human connection is just such a beautiful thing.
It is. I agree with you. I did not know how much I was going to learn from doing the podcast this year until I started doing it. And it is, I learned something from every single conversation and episode. So I love the focus on student voice this year. I think that's really big. All right. Well, we are at the point where it's time for the 3 questions we ask on every episode. Are you ready for our 3 questions?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. First one is, what are the 3 words you want to define your district's culture?
It's hard to stick to 3 words, but I think probably what I would say is joy, love, and quality.
Joy, love, and quality.
Yep.
Excellent. Why'd you choose those words?
Because I think it's so important for people to find joy in their lives. Everything is better. People are in better moods, better dispositions, more willing to compromise, be helpful, share. I think love is such a basic human need that people need to feel loved. And I think love is a powerful thing to spread around the world. It's important to me. Why not make the world a better place?
Yep.
And quality, because, it's also important to me that what we do well.
Yeah.
And students do quality work. Our people bring quality to the profession of education. As a district, we offer a high quality product. So, it's a balance of those 2 things. And I think all of those things are really important. And I think we get the best outcomes when we have those things present.
That's great. I love it. I love that combination. Okay. What is, Maria, one little win that you have had at work lately that we can celebrate for you?
I would say that I had a little win last night. It actually wasn't at work.
Okay.
But I was having dinner with some old friends. Interestingly, down at the yacht club, because it's the nicest place in town.
Sure.
And even though it was raining, there was a covered porch and we were having dinner. And there were some other people at the yacht club doing some things. And one of them was a person who grew up around the neighborhood from me, who's an adult now, has kids in our school system. And he sat down and said to me, we're reading The Anxious Generation in my book group.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, we read that last year as a community book read. And we're going phone free at the high school this year. And he was like, I know, I was hoping that you were going to think it might have been my idea to go phone free. And then another person who was at the yacht club whom I had never met said, oh, are you Maria Libby, the superintendent of our school district? I said, yes, I am. And they said, oh, I am so happy to meet you. I am so-and-so. I'm a parent in the district. I've really appreciated everything that you have done. And it was a very casual, informal exchange and interaction. But I feel like those are little wins for me when people realize who I am, because, I do a lot of the snow day calls. Everyone recognizes my voice. I live in a small town. People generally know who I am, even if I don't know who they are. They've been in an audience where I've spoken or something.
Yep.
And so for me, it's always a win when somebody who I don't know approaches me in the grocery store, at the yacht club. I'm not a member of the yacht club. My friend was, so I'm not there very often, but whatever random place I might be in, and they realize who I am, and they extend some kind of gratitude or appreciation for the work that I've done in the district.
That's great.
I feel like is a win, or they have some, great feeling about something that's happening in the school district, whether I've been involved in it or not, makes me just feel really proud of what we've done in our community.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You are, I think, the fourth superintendent who has mentioned the anxious generation on this podcast. So I know it's a hot read this year. I read it too. So wonderful. Okay, that's amazing, and just a true testament to your leadership, and also your ability to feel kind of personally connected to folks, that they'll just come up to you in the grocery store and make that connection. Okay, last question. What do you believe that any educator can do to improve their school or district culture right now?
So many things, but one thing is to go out of their way for any student that they run into, because the power of that anybody working in a school district has to change a life that truly could change hundreds of lives after that, because it can have a generational impact, is so powerful. We often don't know the impact that we're having when we're having it, whether positive or negative. And because it can be so powerful, I think to have a positive interaction with a student is a simple, really powerful thing that can have a ripple effect beyond what we can imagine.
Absolutely.
And that is the easiest thing to do, to extend your heart and kindness to another person, especially a young person.
I love it. I love the idea right there of going out of your way for one student. It might change their life, but that life might change hundreds more. Yes. That ripple effect is so important to keep top of mind. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. We have learned so many things today, honestly, from chocolate chip cookies to bagels on Fridays, the student leadership forum with the superintendent. What an opportunity, like you said, to change lives, to powerful and joyful school assemblies, and hosting a podcast for your district, and all the way down to just greeting and knowing every student and every staff member by name. You obviously are embodying the idea of little wins across the district, and it is so much fun to learn from you and hear from you. We will absolutely make sure you check out Super Story, Maria Libby's podcast for her district and around student voice this season. And thank you so much, Maria, for being on the podcast today and sharing your story with us.
Well, thank you, Karen. I truly appreciated the conversation, getting to know you. It has been a little win in my day.
Have a little win? We'd love to hear from you. Learn how we help schools build strong culture at getalpaca.com.